She's an award-winning YouTuber and best-selling author obsessed with helping you go after the life you want.
I like it.
Join her as she seeks out the stories and strategies.
Give me every little detail.
Of extraordinary people who found success.
I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God.
Welcome to Detail Therapy with Amy Landino.
Good morning, good life. Welcome back to Detail Therapy. In this episode, we're getting into the details about what to read this year. I'm going to be sharing 21 books for you to read in 2021. We're going to cover all of the vital areas of going after the life you want so that you can read something for better health, mindset, career, relationships, wealth, spirituality, and legacy. If you're new here, hello, my name is Amy Landino and I will be your host. I'm a success coach and founder at Gatlu House, a resource dedicated to helping you go after the life you want. You can see all of our work, including the show notes for this podcast, by visiting detailtherapy.online. I am so excited to sit down and do this. I was inspired by a very popular podcast that we just posted, episode 99, How to Read Way More Books in the New Year. I posted it obviously in December. And in that, I shared not only my tips for reading a lot more, which I know many of you have been taking in stride to kick off 2021. I love seeing you all reading voraciously and tagging me on Instagram. But also, I listed 10 of my favorite books that I read in 2020, and everybody was very excited to just kind of have a couple nudges in the right direction if they're going to read more. What books should they read? So that was helpful. We also have moved Amy TV Book Club to its own Instagram account at Amy TV Book Club. So we've got a new book of the month every single month and all kinds of other recommendations as well in between. So there's just a reading culture going on. I know it's helping so many of you get your head right and take steps in the right direction, even if they're just small steps. So hopefully we're going to continue to keep that trend up today. I'm going to dive right in. We have a lot of books to cover, and I'm not going to go on and on about why you should read every single book, and I also don't expect you to read every single book. Not because I don't think you're capable of reading 21 books in 2021. I actually think you very well could, but I want you to choose the books that are right for you. So simply make a note to yourself of the ones that resonate the most, that sound the most aligned to be interesting to you. You do not have to sit down and read every single one of these, okay? I'm not going to judge you either way. Always, always, always pick up a book that excites you so that we don't fall out of the habit of continuing to learn and grow with these amazing resources. So let's start with health. The first book I'm going to recommend, I'm going to give you a really, really short story. I think you guys heard me talking recently about the fact that I discovered I have an underactive thyroid. And so we kind of just went through the motions. I didn't even think about it. I had talked to my doctor and my doctor gave me medicine and, you know, it's typical journey. Take this medicine and it'll help you. And it was like, okay. But then I started reading about it. And then I was like, psst, future Amy here. Before we get into this little bit about my life, I need to say that I read this book and I'm making my own decisions and I'm consulting with medical professionals and I am not a medical professional. So even though I'm going to speak very enthusiastically about what I've recently discovered, please do your homework and consult with your medical professionals before you make any decisions for yourself. And I'm really sorry that I'm sidebarring in the middle of a book recommendation podcast. It just is what it is, you guys. I tell you the realness. I don't think I want to take this medicine. It doesn't feel right for me. And I started to worry a little bit about if I stayed on it, how long it would take me to come off of it, rather than if I came off of it immediately and did a little bit more research and got a couple of other second opinions. I can always go back on it, but it would take longer to come off of it. So anyway, on my health journey, this has been going on. And one of the books that I read that has completely changed everything for me, that is helping me hopefully cure my own thyroid issues. We'll see. I still have to go and talk to somebody and get second opinions and things like that. But It's also changed my morning routine. It has enhanced some other areas of my life and my clarity, and it's probably going to blow your mind a little bit. But it all comes from the book, Medical Medium, Celery Juice. I don't know if you've heard. Anthony William wrote this book. Now, Anthony William is very interesting. I think if you have certain opinions about how people are spiritually informed, you may or may not like this book, but I could not ignore all of the information about how celery juice is advantageous to our health. And I have since started a celery juice ritual every single day, which is a lot of work, by the way. I am not saying that everybody should get on this bandwagon. If you want to find out why you might consider it, literally this book claims that celery juice cures it all. So take it or leave it, but it is really interesting. I think it's worth taking a look at, and I'm in it. Like, I'm so in it. I'm willing to say that this amazing herb is going to help me out in at least a couple of ways. Maybe not every way, maybe not in my greatest dreams, but I'm at least going to give it a try at 100%. My husband and I have been drinking celery juice every single morning now for a couple weeks, and I'm personally absolutely loving it. I feel a difference in my energy. I feel a difference in my body, and just everything is just amazing. So I'll have to update you on my new morning routine because it's quite complicated. I always recommend you don't have to do my morning routine, but I do think it would be interesting for you to hear how it goes, because I got to have my lemon juice, but I also have to have my celery juice. When do I have to have them? They have to be spaced out. How do I prepare the celery juice? Like, it's a whole situation. If you're interested in this, check out Medical Medium, celery juice. By the way, there's a Medical Medium book probably on anything you want to look up. There's one on thyroid. There's one on everything. So check out the series if that's interesting to you. The second book I recommend, and I probably should speed up my advice because it's going to take a long time to get to 21, isn't it? The second book for health that I recommend is Own the Day, Own Your Life. Optimized Practices for Waking, Working, Learning, Eating, Training, Playing, Sleeping, and Sex by Aubrey Marcus. I will say that Aubrey is another example of someone where you may not approve of all of the things he recommends. You may not approve of all of the ways he runs his life. I personally think that he's got a very interesting take on dating and marriage and things of that nature. So I'll leave that. But he gave some really, really interesting health advice for just optimizing in the ways of waking up and getting better sleep and working out. I think that there was some really good information here. I think this is pretty typical too when you hear somebody on the Tim Ferriss show, which is absolutely where I think it was the Tim Ferriss show. It might have been the Skinny Confidential as well. These are the podcasts that I love, you guys. Aubrey was on one of these shows or both of these shows. And so I just think he's had some really interesting life experiences and can offer a lot in terms of how to just hack your health. And so I like some of his advice, not all of it. And this book, you can get more information on that if you want to hear some really eclectic, different approaches to your health. My third recommendation for you to read this year is Better Than Before, Mastering the Habits of Our Everyday Lives by Gretchen Rubin. Everyone knows I'm a huge fan of Gretchen Rubin. Unless you're brand new, you've now been informed. Better Than Before is kind of one of her sleeper books. It like snuck in there. I don't know. Actually, I think it's probably more popular than The Four Tendencies, but I also think that The Four Tendencies kind of was piggybacked off of Better Than Before. They kind of came out in tandem or very close to each other. Gretchen's very famous for The Happiness Project. That was her big first bestseller. But this book, Better Than Before, is such a practical approach to your habits, and I love it. It's just too hard not to want to use all the tips right away. So definitely recommend that. Check out Gretchen Rubin, regardless of what you select from her work. Okay, moving on to mindset. My first recommendation is by just a fabulous, fabulous author with so many books to choose from, Stephen Pressfield. And this book that I'm going to recommend today is called Do the Work. You can probably guess why, right? It's pretty self-explanatory, but I love how he talks about resistance. And that resistance is our true enemy when it comes to getting the work done. And we talk about blocking, writer's block, and we talk about imposter syndrome. And I think he really summarizes it so well when we're talking about all of those things. We're talking about resistance and how it keeps us from our greatest potential. This is a fantastic read. I highly, highly recommend it. And I think it will help you so much when you're trying to figure out how do you navigate this new world that we're living in such an interesting time, and come out of the negativity space that you might be in right now to go and do the thing that you want to do. Book number 5 in the mindset section, Think Like a Monk, Train Your Mind for Peace and Purpose Every Day by Shetty. You may have also heard me recommend this on episode 99. I thought it was worth another mention. This is a good one. It's funny because Jay is another YouTuber and he's an amazing motivational speaker, and he has spent time with the monks. And I just think that we need to hear from people who are willing to put that work in and tell us how we can be better in our mindset in order for us to approach every single day. And usually we focus on the wrong things in terms of what we can control. The only thing we can control is our own reaction and our own mindset. And so Think Like a Monk is a great practical book, a great real world, make the monks relatable to me and how they think kind of book to be able to do that work well in your own mindset. Book number 6 is Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less by Greg McKeown. I just love this one because I feel like when I hear the word minimalism, I get really turned off because I just feel like it's almost like this cool club that I don't feel like it can be in. I don't know if you feel that way or if you actually love the idea of minimalism and it's really interesting to you. Essentialism is, I feel like, where it introduces the concept of what do you really need and how can you wrap your mind around that in a way that connects with me in a much more understandable way and a much less like anxious way, and less judgmental. So I really love this book. I think it's a great one, not just for, the concept of having too many things, but too many things to do or places to go or items on your plate or tasks or goals. And I think just really breaking things down to the bare bones of what is important to you. I think Greg does an amazing job of talking about that in this book. And I think we all need to have it in our system by the end of 2021. That's for sure. Moving on to the career category. My 7th recommendation of a book to read this year was also mentioned in episode 99, How to Take Smart Notes, one simple technique to boost writing, learning, and thinking for students, academics, and nonfiction book writers by Sank Arens. I am absolutely saying that man's name wrong, but I am so obsessed with this book. I am so pleased that a friend of mine and former client, Matt Ragland, who has an amazing YouTube channel as well on productivity and journaling, introduced me to this book because I'm literally reading from the notes that I took because of what I learned in this book to do this podcast right now. And it's making all of my idea connections so much more just findable and accessible. And it's funny how we have so many different things. We have Trellos and Slacks, and we have notebooks and planners, and we have bullet journals, and we've got tablets. And then it's like, where is everything? And I really feel like I understand better and should have read this book. Just like apparently the students and academics who are being recommended this book. I wish I would have been recommended this book for school. I feel like I should have read this a long time ago because even just taking simple notes, we overcomplicate it a lot. So definitely check this one out. It is fantastic and it will bring so much organization to your brain when it comes to the stuff that you're making note of. My 8th recommendation is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. How could you not mention Brene Brown? This is actually our January pick for Amy TV Book Club. So you may have already heard this recommendation last month. This book is all about brave work, tough conversations, and wholehearted heart. I highly recommend it on audio. I listened to it on audio in January with the book club, and I just really love how Brene speaks. I just feel that her words obviously come through so much more when I'm listening to her speak them herself, especially when you are talking about such scary territory like leadership and doing it in a way that's really human. You don't have to want to own a company for that to be an effect in your life. We're all leaders in our own way. And just this book really explains so much on just making it much more accessible from a human standpoint and not having to put it on a pedestal, this idea of leadership, because we all need to be a leader in some kind of way. My 9th recommendation, and the 3rd for your career, is Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port. This is an oldie but a goodie. An oldie, not a super oldie. I just mean oldie, like in the current age of business books. Michael Port is a wonderful author, and this book in particular was a big hit for him because he was helping people with service-based businesses or some kind of business where you're looking for clients to book themselves solid. And I'm actually a Book Yourself Solid certified coach. I work with Matthew Kimberly in the Book Yourself Solid program so that I can bring that curriculum to the Get Loose Society. And we have actually gone through so much great information about Book Yourself Solid. We've gone through every single training in the last couple of months so that all of the members of the Get Loose Society could hit the ground running in 2021 on making sure that they are building their business no matter what the state of the economy and the world and the pandemics and all the things are that are going on. We've got to put the work in to get those clients, and Michael Port has the way in this book. So if you want to learn it with me, join the Get Loose Society, or you pick up this book and get all of the information there. It's fabulous either way. Obviously, I would rather you join me so I can help you directly during Q&A and stuff, but this book is fantastic. I read it very early on in my career and it changed the game for me. Moving on to the relationships category, my 10th recommendation is The Love Languages. That's right, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. I just feel like I refer to this book so frequently because it is really interesting. You can start to understand people a little bit better when you notice the way that they feel and give love. And I think that that's one of the most important things that we can identify about the people that we love is what is their love language, because we may not be able to be all things to all people at all times, but we can absolutely find ways to go the extra mile for those people in terms of how they observe and feel love. So for instance, when I wake my husband up every single morning, which obviously I do because I wake up before him, I go into the bedroom and I just like lay on top of him. I just like get in the bed. I actually don't even pull the covers up or anything. I just like lay my entire body on him because it's his favorite way to wake up, first of all, because he loves me. But second of all, he's a touch love language. He likes the idea of touch. He likes to be touched. And that's not necessarily my number one. It's definitely up there, but it's very important to him. And so that's my way of saying, like, I'm not just going to come in and say good morning because you're not a words person, you're a touch person. And so I have to just give you that so that I can give you as much love as I can to start the day. And then there's other little ways you can use the love languages just in your day-to-day life when you interact with people. If you know somebody is a quality time person, that might be the person you need to book more coffee time with. Or if you know someone is a gifts person, being more tactful about how you pick out showing them that you love them when you get them a birthday gift or something, just being really intentional and trying to figure out how do you make it more personal to them. I thought this book was just so fascinating, not just for your love relationships, but for all your relationships. Number 11, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Powerful Lessons in Personal Change by Stephen R. Covey. I love this one because I think it's not just great habits in our lives, but it's the great habits of how we interact with others. This is a classic. I don't need to tell you why you should read this because you've probably heard a million people say why you should read this. So read this. My 12th recommendation is Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. This book is secrets to success, one relationship at a time. It is the networking Bible, according to me. I personally have recommended this book probably for the last 6 or 7 years because when I read it, I was thinking to myself, wow, I feel like even as an introvert, I can go out and I can meet the whole world and I can make a great impression and I know how to follow up and I know how to build these relationships. It's a big orange book and I love it. Pick it up. Let's move on to the wealth category. My 13th recommendation for you on the list of 21 books for 2021 is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Setsi. This is such a great, practical, real-world approach to money. It's not about being rich. It's actually just about knowing what the heck you're doing with money. And you know what? That's pretty much what all my recommendations are going to be here because I think that we really are lacking financial education at an early age, specifically in the United States. And we all just try to navigate the best that we can. And sometimes we think we're doing good when we don't actually do very well by ourselves. We might be taking care of a lot of other people, a lot of other institutions, but we might not be taking care of ourselves. So I think this is a great place to start with Ramit in I Will Teach You to Be Rich. My 14th recommendation and the second in the wealth category is going to be a little bit more of an old-time story and is going to take some patience to read, but it's a shorter book and I do highly recommend you pick it up no matter what your patience is for the reading style that it is, but it's George S. Clason's The Richest Man in Babylon. This is such an old book, but what it does is it really starts to illustrate that the money hacks, the money advice, the good money tactics that we need to learn are not new, first of all. And second of all, remember what I just said about, hey, we might be taking care of everybody else, but we're not taking good care of ourselves. We need to get outside of the mentality that we have to hurry up and pay all of our bills as soon as we get paid. Because when you do that, yes, you are making good as well as you can, but you're not proving to yourself that you're able to build wealth because you're not even able to save something that is not meant to be spent at all or immediately in the same rotation. We just immediately take our paycheck and go paycheck to paycheck of all of our bills. And in The Richest Man in Babylon, they just say, just save a tenth of what you earn. Just save a tenth. Every single time you earn something, just save a tenth. And I think you will see that lesson resonate throughout each of these selections. But The Richest Man in Babylon just really makes you realize, wow, it doesn't matter what year it is. It doesn't matter how people make money these days. It doesn't matter what the tax situation is. It doesn't matter what the government's doing. This is something everyone can do. And the people who don't do not build wealth. Period. And my final recommendation for the wealth category, book number 15, is You Are a Badass at Making Money, Master the Mindset of Wealth by Jen Sincero. I think Ramit and Jen have been recommended by me very frequently in the last few months, and that's just because these books are fantastic. And Jen really makes it feel good as a woman to talk about money, to observe money, to be happy with money, to address money for what it actually is, to not have the imposter syndrome of expecting more money when we go into different areas and become more qualified in our lives. And I just love her approach to this. This book was fantastic. I couldn't put it down. It just gave me so much more confidence as I was reading it about the concept of making money. I would even argue that this book is the reason that I started talking more publicly about money, because I think we're all learning as we go, but I want to share what I've learned along the way. And we need more financial awareness in all of our circles. It's very taboo to talk about money. It's very taboo to ask friends about money. And I think we need to be respectful and not go beyond certain lines, but I think we need to explore what those lines are more often so that we can help the people closest to us succeed. Next up, we have spirituality. My 16th recommendation is The Untethered Soul, The Journey Beyond Yourself by Michael A. Singer. This book, I don't even think I can explain it. And that's why I love the spirituality section, because it's like, you just have to trust me this one will probably change your life and the way you look at things. I could even imagine that it would maybe teeter-totter on the legacy category as well. But it really helps you kind of feel set free by those limitations in your life. And I think that that's a big part of spirituality. I think we can go a lot of directions in this category, and everybody has different faiths that they consider a part of their spirituality category. It's your decision. That's a personal thing. But when we talk about just the overall concept of being more spiritual and thinking in a way that is bigger than ourselves, I love this one. I just love this one. So Michael A. Singer's The Untethered Soul. Pick it up. Book number 17 is another one that's hard to explain, but will change your life. Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements, a practical guide to personal freedom. And I will say this, it's a practical guide. It is. It's still very, very big thinking and will spiritually lift you up so much. I love Miguel. I think he's written so many amazing books, but this one is the one I always go to when I'm like, I just need to get back to center. And another really good selection when it comes to beating down those self-limiting beliefs and trying to live a life of joy. If you have not heard Miguel Ruiz on Super Soul Sunday or any Oprah situation, because I think she's had him on multiple times, that's a great way to get introduced to him as well and just try to get a feel for how he thinks. But oh my goodness, The Four Agreements. This is one you buy, you put it on your bookshelf, and you keep it close. Very, very good. And then I just wanted to have a little bit of fun with spirituality here, especially since maybe spiritually driven means to you just like getting out of the house, and that might not be something that's happening for you right now, or traveling, or just feeling the feels, or having a romantic affair, or whatever. And so I always think of Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert, because that book was it just changed my life. It changed what I thought about women and how capable they were of doing the things that they wanted to do with their life. Of course, I read this book many, 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 many years ago, and then I was just so excited when there was a movie with Julia Roberts, but you've got to read the book. The book is excellent, and it just feels good maybe to go into like a fictional escape if you have not already read Eat, Pray, Love. It really is lovely. Our final category is legacy. And I've actually gotten a few messages just from a few people thinking like, oh, I struggle with legacy. Sometimes I don't exactly know what to write for my goals for my legacy. And that's because we have a section in the Good Morning Good Life Planner for all of these different categories, including legacy. You know, what are those goals? How do you set an annual goal for your legacy? And I think that it's all very relative. When we talk about your legacy, in my opinion, we're thinking, you know, what do you want people to say about you when you're no longer here? And it's not about people pleasing. It's about, you know, what do you want people to feel about what you did to make the world different during your time? And that's a big, big thought. And I think you have to do a lot of exercises, specifically writing and thinking, in order to navigate that space. So the first book that I recommend in this category, number 19 on the list, is Living Forward, A Proven Plan to Stop Drifting and Get the Life You Want by Michael Hyatt. When I got this book, I sat aside an entire weekend to work through it. I spent a whole weekend reading the book, and in real time of reading it, going through the exercises. And I was writing things to myself about what I wanted to see for after I was gone. I was writing what I wanted for my family after I was gone. I was writing what I wanted them to know after I was gone. And there was a lot of really interesting, deep thought processes that went into those writing exercises that gave me an idea of how then do I live my life and set goals for myself from a legacy standpoint. How do you want people to feel? How do you want the world to be better? This is a great book to walk you through that if you feel like you need a little bit of direction in terms of what it means for you to think about your legacy. The 20th book on the list is Lives of the Stoics, The Art of Living from Zeno to Marcus Aurelius. This one is by Ryan Holiday. It is a brand new book from him, and I love it because I read all about Stoicism. You guys know I read the Daily Stoic every morning. I love a lot of the works of Marcus Aurelius, such as Meditations. I read the work of Seneca, and I'm always trying to figure out, why am I overcomplicating my life? What can the Stoics tell me to help me step forward every day better? And why this book is interesting is that we actually get to see what the lifestyle of these quote unquote Stoic philosophers who are in our history and noted for whatever reason that they are, we get to hear about and read about what their lives were actually like, because we don't want to put people, no matter who they are or what legacy they've left, on a pedestal. We want to be realistic about where they've been, what they've done, and what we can learn from that time. And even though Marcus Aurelius might have had a really, really fabulous life in the Roman Empire, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the reason that he is someone we should listen to. It was the realizations that he had that we should listen to. And then there are others who had a terrible life, a poor life, if you just would label it, but they worked really hard at removing those labels to really consider what's actually happening here and how am I going to approach it differently with my mindset. So I find it fascinating because I find it to always be dangerous when we put people up high and we think they must be perfect on every level. And I use the word perfect loosely, but that's how we end up thinking. It's just the human nature of our world. But not everyone's life is so simple. And so seeing where they came from can make it a lot easier for us to maybe connect with somebody who we want to take advice from and understand where they came from that made them come to that advice. And my 21st book recommendation, the final one of the legacy category, the final one on the list for 2021, Awaken the Giant Within, How to Take Immediate Control of Your Mental, Emotional, Physical, and Financial Destiny by Tony Robbins. The reason I put this in the legacy category, quite frankly, is because it fits in so many categories. It was like, where do you put it? But also just because this book lights a fire. This book lights a fire, and it makes you look at your life so differently and so much more optimistically that you can't help but think, my life is even bigger than me. And that's what I think legacy really is. And when you can look at, my life is bigger than me, and what can I do with it, and where can I go with it, and how can I make people feel, and how can I be better, that's exciting. And sometimes we really just need a kick in the pants on it. And Tony Robbins is pretty famous for the kick in the pants. I don't know if you've heard. This is a really interesting one on an audiobook perspective, because I don't think he actually recorded the book in audio, but they took some kind of version of something into an audio form. So it's actually a pretty short and bingeable audio version. So if you don't necessarily pick up the book, it'll be a very interesting experience from an audio perspective. I have done both, but definitely check that out. Every single book will be linked in the show notes so that you can pick up your ideal format, whether it's a hardcover, audiobook, Kindle, totally up to you. We will link it in the show notes, so make sure that you check that out and pick up the ones that are right for you to read in 2021. You'll also see so many more recommendations over at Amy TV Book Club, which is over on Instagram at Amy TV Book Club. And I got one more book for you. Surprise! Our book of the month for Amy TV Book Club was just announced. It is More Than Enough by Elaine Welteroth, claiming space for who you are, no matter what they say. All I know is I'm excited to read this book this month. I can't say I've read it yet, but this is the one that we're reading in book club. So I wanted to make sure that I included that here because it just goes perfectly with the conversation. So we'll link to that as well. Come follow us on Instagram so that you know all the books that we recommend all the time. And let me know which one you pick up first. Send me a DM on Instagram and let me know which one of these books that you decided to read. Thank you, everybody who left a 5-star review of the podcast. We've got so many of you heading over to the Apple Podcast Store to leave a review. Amazing. Thank you. Today's shout out goes to JM Brown 429. Your 5-star review and your thoughts meant so much to me. You have officially won a Good Morning Good Life planner. Congratulations. Make sure you send us an email, hello@detailspodcast.com. Prove that you are JM Brown 429, and we will get that planner shipped out to you. That's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Remember, subscribe for good vibes, kiss the ones you love, and go after the life you want. I'll see you back here on Tuesday. Cheers.